Now, I love playing this song because we're awfully close to Madison Square Garden, aren't we? I think you know where we're going with this one. Our dad was asked to play a concert at the end of 1971 at Madison Square Garden. It was actually built as an oldies show, and the promoter was very insistent that our father play it. Now, up until that point in time, he really wanted to kind of, well, they call it rebranding now. He just wanted to do something different, and he wasn't ashamed of where he'd been. It's just that he had been playing colleges for kids that had no idea who he was for a year before that. And he was actually not selling as many records, but he was having a great time. And finally, people, as I mentioned, were kind of taking him seriously. But he always wanted to play the Garden. And of course, some of his friends were on the bill. That, well, Chuck Berry and Bobby Darin and all these people that he knew, the Shirelles, Gary U.S. Bonds, and he decided to show up. Now, the problem was, it wasn't the music, really. It was the fact that he grew up on black and white television, and he had to explain to the promoter that when people see you on TV for that long, they expect you to kind of walk right out of a black and white television set looking like you did when you were 16. And at the time, he had kind of long hair and sequins. He looked like he looked like Gunnar, basically. And 20,000 people heard him play his new music. He had a steel guitar in the band instead of the great James Burton, who went on to play with Elvis at that time. And yeah, give it up for James Burton. I actually spoke to him right before we came out here tonight, folks. Say a prayer for James. He's kind of recovering from some surgery right now, but he's 77 years old and playing guitar better than anybody in the world still, actually. So anyways, our dad stepped out on stage, and he said that he felt this immediate unease. Because, you know, New Yorkers, they love everybody, all the time. And they saw this long-haired cowboy on stage and said, that's not Ricky Nelson, and 20,000 people booed him off the stage that night. Now, there are different stories for it, and every time I play in New York, I get some wise guy saying, I was there, and it was actually a fight in New York. No, it wasn't. When you're on stage, and you feel 20,000 people turn on you, you know it, okay? But it was a good thing, believe it or not, because he went backstage, and of course, nobody came to say hello. I mean, his friends from the Beatles were there, and they didn't come back, because, I mean, what do you say when that happens? Sorry, get him next time, you know? And he went home, and a song, he said, came to him in his sleep 2 weeks later. He said it was completely finished in his head. And he wrote it down on one piece of paper, and if you have the album out there, just turn it over, you can see the lyrics he wrote on the back there, and it became one of the greatest rock and roll comebacks in history thanks to a disc jockey named Pete Fornatal from New York. He was there that night. Give it up for Pete, wherever you are in heaven there, buddy. Because Pete locked himself in his studio and spun Garden Party over and over again until people actually picked up on that song. And it became, as I said, one of the biggest rock and roll comebacks ever, and I always call it the greatest rock and roll middle finger in a velvet glove you will ever hear.
You know, it's kind of cool. If you listen to the song and you don't know the story that Matthew just told, the chorus by itself is wonderful. You can't please everyone, so you gotta please yourself. It's great on its own, right? And you think that the lyrics are nonsensical, but you're gonna hear these lyrics this time just a little bit differently. Man, I love the
and everybody asks us, Mr. Hughes, hidden Dylan's shoes? That was actually George Harrison in disguise that night, just so you know. Okay, so here we go. Ladies and